Hello and Happy New Year! Today is January 1st, 2020. We are in Stuttgart, Germany right now. The air pollution is quite bad because of the fireworks from yesterday. That's one reason to drive an electric car. But the main reason I'm here today is because I'm meeting Albert Frischmann, the founder of Teslametric.
Hi.
Hi Albert. And we want to figure out what's the potential of your data that your Tesla produces and to see what you can make out of it. Let's go for a ride.
As I started driving Tesla 2016, after maybe 10 trips, I got the feeling I cannot understand what this car is doing.
Ah, okay.
So, because you have an experience of driving a combustion car, you know if you make a lot of acceleration, the consumption rises. If you drive constantly with high velocity, the consumption is somehow down. And here's vice versa and different, and strongly dependent on outside temperature, inside temperature, you name it. So those are influence factors you didn't learn to recognize and take into consideration in your driving, in your overall usage experience of such a car.
So what is Teslametric in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, Teslametric is a fitness tracker for your Tesla.
How come you developed Teslametrics? What are you missing in Tesla's own software? Where are the limits? What information don't you have, or which software feature don't you have?
Well, it is something I call digital amnesty. You see all the information Tesla shows you, your momentary consumption, your speed, your nearly everything. It has a built-in board computer, not a problem. But this information disappears immediately after you have seen that. There are a couple of slots where you can store some drives, where you can store some statistics, but that's it. So you can see your last drive, but the drive before your last drive, you have no information about that.
Okay, so basically no history.
No history. It's basically no history, digital amnesia. The car knows what happened 15 minutes ago, but it has no idea what happened 2 months ago.
Okay, so it's like a goldfish. Kind of.
It's like, yeah, well, it's digital goldfish. Well.
What did you recognize when you started to record your own data and look at it? Does it matter if you accelerate fast? And
no, you can accelerate right crazy, and the consumption would not rise significantly.
Okay.
But if you constantly drive high velocity,
right,
the consumption rises. Right. That's somehow crazy, because if you drive like that, imagine here, I'm nearly standing, then I'm accelerating. So,
right,
and then the car is charging now.
Yeah, now you have regenerative braking.
I have regenerative braking, and then I accelerate again, and then I regenerate. The consumption rises slightly, but not all that high as you would anticipate by ICE.
If you drive on a highway, is there an optimal speed that you should drive at 120 kilometers per hour? Is it vastly different than 140 kilometers per hour?
It's vastly different than 140 kilometers.
All right, so it's not linearly going up, but it's going up more than linear.
Quadratically, and somehow something like that.
Ah.
So it's really different.
And by analyzing the data, you can, after a ride, you can have a look at it, and then you see for which parts of your track how high the energy consumption was.
Well, the first use case is our famous vampire drain. You know what vampire drain is?
I read about it. It's when your car stands and is in standby.
What's one of the main differences to an internal combustion car is you can put your internal combustion car into the garage and drive it 2 years later, and the tank is exactly same full as it was. yes?
Yep.
But the electric car loses charge every time. Every time it stands, it simply stands, it loses the charge.
Yeah, like,
So,
like my smartphone does.
Like your smartphone does, maybe a little bit more, because it is, well, sometimes if it is too hot outside, it has to cool down the battery even while standing, and if it is cold outside, it has to heat the battery a little bit, or preheat the battery, some intelligent options which came along last time. So the car is losing charge, and this is the first encounter which makes you feel uneasy when you start using your car. So, and there is really no single information about this vampire drain in the car itself.
So when you started to measure it, how bad is the vampire drain? I could imagine that like a lot of people considering to purchase an electric car are afraid of losing too much range while they park the car in the garage. Is it that bad as it seems?
It is that bad and not that bad. You do not lose 20 kilometers overnight, but it accounts to some, well, in my case, I don't see the data of other customers, but in my case, I see my own data, and in my case, it accounts to some 20% of overall energy consumption. So as you can see here, it is a total energy balance of my car. Those are sources of energy: home charging, charging stations, and superchargers. And the usage is driving and even vampire drain. You see?
Yeah, very nice icon.
Thank you. The credits go to my designer. Here you see something which goes from front to back, because it is a regenerative brake.
Yeah.
It is considerable amount of energy I have saved by regenerative braking over time. It is somehow comparable to overall vampire drain. You see, vampire drain is somewhere.
Both are about 700 kilowatt hours.
700 kilowatt hours or 20%.
So how about charging your Tesla? Now you can see an overview of where you charge. How about the costs of charging?
Well, the cost calculation is something I'm especially very proud of, because here in Germany we have quite a weird cost structure at the charging points. You have some monthly fees, you have some starting charges. It means you pay some fixed price every time you start charging. Then you have timely fees. So for a minute, you pay some fee for a minute, and you have energy fees. So you pay some fixed price for energy unit, for instance, kilowatt, and any combinations of that. So, and this is what we support, and what is unique sales proposition of our product. We support all that game arts, and we even support price changes, and you can even plan price change, upcoming price change in our product.
I can imagine people who consider buying an electric car are very confused about the price structures at charging stations, and if you have to do the calculations in your own mind and compare the minute prices to kilowatt hour prices and then some monthly fees added on it, then it's just much more complicated than looking at the gas station that we can see right here and see.
Yes, exactly.
So that gasoline is €1.60.
This is exactly what we electric driver are missing, because if you see, there is a charging station we can drive along.
Yeah.
So here's a charging station. So first of all, you don't see how much does it cost.
Right. I just see that there's 2 power outputs.
Power outlets and nothing more. You see, maybe you see that this is a Type 2, which is European standard. So it is a, so to say, a slow charging station. But no problem. Slow charging is very good for the battery. It's better for the battery than a fast charging. Okay, but first of all, you have no chance to charge there if you don't have the charging card. a charging card which is compatible with this station. This station is by New Motion. The New Motion is recently acquired by Shell. Okay. So I have this charging chip of New Motion. I would be able to charge there, and I have a charging car of ADAC ENBW, which is a local provider in South Germany, and I would be able to charge there per roaming. Okay. So dependent on with which card I have started the charging process, the price can be absolutely dramatically different.
So which one would be cheaper at this point?
Over there is a station, the native station of ENBW, and there with the ADAC card, the charging would cost me 29 cents per kilowatt, and with this card, with the New Motion, the charging would cost me 48 cents the minute. Which would account for some incredible kilowatt charges, because
so much more expensive.
Much more expensive, and you have to know that, you have to consider that, you have to keep that in mind all the time, and your software should be able to take that into consideration and calculate. So this is a terrible mess, and I think we are the best who's able to somehow manage this chaos.
The cost structure and simplify it for users.
Exactly, and you can look back, and at every charging process, I have my charges here. So and you see I have the cost. Yes.
And now this charge was very short, and you pay €2.40.
€2.40, and you see it is €0 fixed rate, 29 cents per kilowatt, and 0 cents per minute, and no starting charge.
Okay. So, Albert, why do you drive a Tesla in the first place?
Well, there are a lot of components for that. First of all, I'm a technique addict, and this is the right car for technique addicts.
Okay.
This is first of all. And the second is also a fascination for the person of Elon Musk. So Elon, if you see me, I love you.
How come you started Teslametric? Did you do similar work before?
Yes, of course. I have nearly 14 years my career. I have worked for different projects concerning car telemetrics. This is quite a surprising area, because nobody has recognized the value of the data which can be gathered by a vehicle. A modern vehicle is a rolling sensor. Not everyone can imagine that a modern car has more than something like 2,000 sensors, which are built in for internal operation of the car, and they deliver continuously some information about the car, the passengers, the car state, and it is of no use for the world outside of the car.
What could it be of use for outside of the car?
There are a plenitude of usages. You can use the sensor data gathered in the shock absorbers of the gear of the wheels, and then record that on different cars driving around in some rural area or some city area, and you can gather information about the street states, about the holes.
So you can record where there's holes in the streets, and then you can give this information to the city.
The city regulators can use this information to repair the streets, for instance.
Cool. That's
they install, especially in this city, in Stuttgart, they install expensive air pollution or air state sensors on the public streets. It is expensive. It has to be connected somehow. All that stuff which you have to manage with some sensor which is standing somewhere in the field, and in the same time there are hundreds of thousands of cars driving in the same city, and every single car which has a electronic control block for injection has an air quality sensor built in.
Right.
A very sensitive, a very high quality air quality sensor. It is built in nearly every car, but instead of gathering the data from the cars, we're installing
lots of sensors outside.
Not lots of sensors, because you have no option to install a sensor
right.
on every corner. But you have already those sensors, and this is something which drives me crazy, because everybody tries to bring data, bring content into the car, and nobody thinks about how valuable content generator a modern car can be. So this was
right. This seems like a big potential.
It is an enormous potential, and this is something I have done in my last 14, 15 years for different car manufacturers.
The biggest fear that people have when they consider an electric car is definitely the range, and there's this term called range anxiety, where people fear that they can't go on rides because they won't find chargers, or they have to wait for a long time, and that's a big issue. Since you analyze the data, does it help you to better estimate the ranges that you need for your rides, or does it help you reflect on the range?
This functionality to better estimate the consumption for the trip is something we need more time, because we need more data for that. This is definitely what we would offer eventually, because we can use machine learning and we can use data science to analyze data as soon as we have enough data to analyze.
So how does Teslametric work? What does it require to work? I guess the Tesla is always or mostly connected to the internet, and the data needs to get to the server somehow.
Yes, exactly. Every Tesla car is connected to the internet by default. You don't have to do anything for that, and it delivers data for the Tesla app. And this app requires an API, and this API is reverse engineered. It is not an official API which Tesla offers. Tesla can change that at any time, and Tesla changes that every now and then, and a lot of engineers over the world are keeping track on that API, and this API is very good described, and anybody can use it.
And what's the frequency of new data points? How often do you get the information about your current speed and so on?
We try to not overstress the API, so we keep the polling frequency as low as it possible, so it is varies whether the car is standing, charging, or driving. During the drive, I ask every 5 seconds.
Okay.
And during standing, every 40 seconds, something like that.
All right. I could imagine that people are afraid of using third-party software with their Tesla because they are afraid they might have some security concerns. What's the worst thing that could happen if somebody uses a service like Teslametric, or if somebody has access to a Tesla with the API?
Well, technically, Tesla did a bad job, maybe because they didn't intend this API to be used externally, but this API has no separation of inbound and outbound control. What I mean by that, as you probably know, you can unlock your car from the Tesla app, and this works over the API. And they have no additional security check on this acting commands. Well, it is not a problem when somebody honks your car or flashes the lights or makes a honk. That's, well, it could be bad enough, but it's not tragic.
It's not a security concern.
It's not a security concern, but you can unlock the car over their API. And there is an unlock the car, and you can even start the car from this API. So technically your car can be stolen because of a flaw of such an application. Yes.
Okay, so that's a huge security concern. What's the solution that you and your team developed?
When you have a code which operates the car, you can have bugs in this code, and if you have bugs in some code which can move your car can be stolen per bug, or your car can be unlocked per bug, or whatever else. So our solution, not to have those security concerns, we don't have a code which operates your car. So you cannot plan your climate control starting over our application, because we don't have any code which operates the car, which unlocks the car, which starts any conditions on the car. Even we don't have the code which starts Sentry mode or whatever else, because if you have some outbound comment, you can have a wrong outbound comment and you can compromise the customer's car, and therefore there will be never some functionality in our Teslametric which would allow to operate the car. It is a limitation, but therefore it is a security advantage. I cannot stress enough, I can recommend for every Tesla driver not only using external trackers or whatever else, but also simply using the key fob. You have to turn on the pin to drive. It is not much disturbing to enter pin before you're driving, but this way your car cannot be stolen, even if it is unlocked.
So you mentioned battery degradation. I
Exactly.
think that's one of the second most important issue. People are worried about how long is the battery of an electric car going to last, how much range will I lose over the years. What kind of insights can you give regarding battery degradation?
Okay, I think it strongly depends on manufacturer and make, but as far as Tesla is concerned, the Tesla Model S, this is the cars I have owned before and I own now. And in the last 3 years, the battery went from 98% to 94%. So it is quite a good number.
So over 3 years, you lost 4%.
4%, something like that. And if you see the curve, it was flattening. So the most of maybe there's 2% of those 4% I have lost during the first half a year, and then over time it went flatter. So I think the degradation would be next 3 years it would lose maybe another 2% or 2 or 3%, but it is only my prediction. One of our customers has, with the help of this battery degradation curve, has found out that his battery degradation was too quick, and he got his battery replaced with a Tesla support center.
All right. So this is the end of our ride. Albert, thank you very much for the conversation.
You're welcome.
And have a good day.
Same to you.
Thanks for watching. This interview was initiated by me and it was not sponsored by Teslametric. If you enjoyed it, consider to subscribe to not miss any new videos regarding trends in e-mobility, shared mobility and renewable energy. And now, what would you do with the data? Leave a comment below.